Praises to the Most High God, whose name is Yahweh, and his only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, Yahweh Shai in the Paleo Hebrew. Right, it's Brother Uriah coming at you with a quick turned up Thursdays through the Spirit. Right, closing out on the topic of the Willie Lynch letter. Right, just bringing edification through the Spirit in these last days, man. Right, bringing understanding that wasn't here before. Right, shining a light in the places of darkness. Right, let me get a quick precept. Right, let's go to Revelation chapter 22 real quick. Right, Revelation chapter 22 in verse 1. And he shewed me a pure river of water of life. Right, because what? It said a pure river of water of life. What is water in the scriptures? Water is the word according to what? Ephesians 5 and 26. Right, John chapter 7 and verse 37 on down. Right, and it said a pure river of water of life. What brings forth life? Baruch 4 and 1. This is the book of the commandments of God. Whosoever keep it shall come to life. Right, Proverbs 7 and 1. Keep my commandments and live. Right, reading on. Proceeding out of the throne of God and out of the Lamb. Right, so in these last days, the Lord is pouring forth spiritual understanding. Right, and revealing things that wasn't here in times past. Right. All right, Shalom, everybody hopping in this thing. Brother Don, Brother Moses, right? Shalom to all the saints, right? Shalom to all the mighty brothers. They hit the highways and the hedges, doing the work of the Lord in their due seasons, right? Shalom to all the children, right? Being obedient to their parents, right? And seeking the Lord for understanding, seeking to be set apart from this world. Shalom to all the sisters, married and unmarried, right? Married, reverencing their husbands, being submissive, teaching their children, right? Unmarried, looking to the elder women, learning how to become a wife, learning how to become righteous through the Spirit, right? Shalom, Brother Yah, right? Shalom to everybody that's hopping in this thing, right? I'm going to give brothers a few more moments, then we're going to get into this, right? And as I stated, right, this is the final series of the Willie Lynch letter that I'm going into, right? And in the topic of the live is called what? Control the tongue or control the language, right? Because ultimately, right, that's how you control the people, right? Hey, America, this is why the scriptures call America a harlot that practices witchcraft, according to Nahum 3 and 4. Because America has set it up in today's times with their words, with their language, that it's just witchcraft, man. It's everything about America's language, the English tongue, is witchcraft. Because, well, you have a lot of words that are pronounced the same, but have two, maybe three totally different meanings. You have the word bear, as in the animal. You have the word bear, as in bearing a burden, right? You have the word witch, as in which one. Then you have the word witch, as in, oh, she's a sorceress, right? Those are just a few examples of how the tongue is so important, right? Hey, when you can kind of control the tongue or the language of people, you kind of start to play with their minds a little bit, right? So that's what we're going to touch on today, right, through the Spirit, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get in this thing, right? The Willie Lynch letter, page 24, control the tongue, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and start at the top. It said, crossbreeding completed, for further severance from their original beginning, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new nigger and the new mule, and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. So this is what they're doing when they took away the language which we spoke, right, which was the Paleo Hebrew. And I'm going to get a couple precepts on that, right? It said when you take away their old language, you have to institute the new language, which is more suitable for their new life. Because when we spoke in the Paleo Hebrew, right, we were rulers, we were kings, right? We were the righteous. And when they gave us this new identity, we became, as what? The dust to the ground, right? We have been destroyed mentally. It said in Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, for a lack of knowing, for a lack of understanding who we are, right? So, real quick, what's the precept? Well, I'm asking y'all, like, I'm not going to give it to you. Right, let's go to Acts real quick, chapter 22, right? Because what language was it that we spoke? Let's find out. Acts chapter 22, I'm starting at verse 1. It says, men, brethren, and fathers, hear ye my defense, which I make now unto you. This is Paul speaking, right? It says, and when they heard that he spake in the Hebrew tongue to them, they kept the more silence. And he said, so a part of him speaking in the Hebrew tongue is what? He's going to get some more background on it. I am verily a man which am a Jew. So the Jews, right, the Israelites, speak in the Hebrew tongue. That's our native tongue, right? Born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers. That's another cut right there for the law being perfect, right? Taught according to the perfect manner of the law, right? And was zealous toward God as ye all are this day, right? So the point is, in the Hebrew tongue, that's the tongue which we spake in, right? So let's get another account to prove that. Let's go to the prologue of Ecclesiasticus, or Sirach in the Apocrypha, page 70, right? The prologue of the wisdom of Jesus, the son of Sirach, right? And we're gonna drop down to about, I want to say the third paragraph, all right? And it reads thus: wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us, wherein we may say, or select you, wherein we may seem to come short of some words, which we have labored to interpret. And that's why you got the BLB, right? Certain apps like that, because the BLB, it gives us a closer translation to the language which we was actually speaking, right? Man, in today's times, they try to take the Bible and read it for straight what it is, with the English understanding, right? For example, the word world. The word world back then in ancient times, right? It didn't always mean the entire world. Oftentimes it meant what? The children of Israel. Isaiah 45 and 17, right? Psalms 90 and 2, right? But then you also have the actual understanding of what? The word world, right? Meaning what? The Lord, the world is the Lord's footstool, roughly paraphrasing. All right? Reading on. It says, where we at? Which we have labored to interpret, for the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue. Meaning what? From Hebrew, right, to what? To English. From Hebrew, right, to the language of the Italians, right? From Hebrew to all these different languages, right? It's not going to have the same power and influence, right? And translated into another tongue have not the same force in them, right? So when it read that, I'm going to read it again. It said, the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same force in them, right? Because what? In the Hebrew language is so powerful through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, right? You got blessings that you can read. You got curses that you can read. And those things have power in them, right? Shout out to the brothers from WF5, because what? They a lot of times they prophesy, right? It's a certain prayer that they do in Hebrew, and it's about the destruction of Babylon, right? But they also got the blessings of Yasha Allah, right? So shout out to those brothers. I got a picture. I wish I could upload it. I'm going to find a way, one way or another, Lord's will, right? But The point is what? The Hebrew tongue has power. So it's not something so marvelous that our enemies, in one way they sought to destroy us, was taking away our language, trying to get us accustomed to the new life of what? Being a slave, right? Let's get a quick precept, right? Because is Israel a homeborn slave, right? Let's go to Jeremiah, the 2nd chapter, right? In verse 14, it says, is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? Why has these things come upon us? Why is it that we the only nation that was forced to give up our mother tongue, or our father tongue, if you will, right? Why is it that we the only nation that was forced to give up our homeland? The most glorious homeland any nation could possibly desire, and we was forced to give ours up. The most purest language that was even spoken by the Most High God, His Son Yahweh Shai, we was forced to give that up. Is Israel a homeborn slave? Then why is he spoiled? Right? Let's find out why we were spoiled and these things had to be taken away from us. Right? Let's go to the book of Psalms, right? Chapter 106. We're going to start at verse 40. Right? And it reads, well, I'm going to start at 35. It says, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works, and they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. So, a lot of people don't understand, right? I'm going to just use this real quick. In the New Testament, you got Israelites being called Gentiles. Why is that? Because of this scripture right here. Were mingled among the heathen and learned their works, and they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. We learned the works of these nations, right? And what did we start to do? We started to learn their ways and to walk after their ways. We started to live as the Gentiles lived, right? In 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 6 on down, it said what? It was unlawful for a man to call himself a Jew, right? Hey, you gotta wait, okay? Okay. Go back there with mama, okay?
Okay.
Okay. See you later. Bye. Okay, right? So in 2 Maccabees, it was, I think I'll read that. If I get some time, I think I'll read that, right? But 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 6 on down, it says what? It was unlawful for a man to call himself a Jew, right? So what does that mean? They had to learn, they were forced to learn the ways of the Grecians. Matter of fact, I am going to read that, right? And when you're forced to take on the customs of what? Another nation, that means, well, you're going to forget your customs in due time, right? So let's read on. It says, yeah, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan. And the land was polluted with blood. So we just going all the way off. I'm talking going to hell, man. Right? I'm going to drop down to verse 40. It says, therefore. So when we started to learn the ways of these nations, right? It says, therefore was the wrath of the Lord kindled against his people. Now, I see what you're saying, Ross, Galbraith, or whatever, right? But one thing that you're missing is the Lord's wrath against his people. The Lord don't give a damn about what happens to these nations. But when it happened to the children of Israel, that's when this whole story changes. That's when the motive, or right? That's when we understand why this happened to the Lord's people. We don't give a damn why it happened to the Scots, right? And if we're being technical, the original Scots were Israelites in that landmass, right? And there's many sources that you can go into for that, right? If you want to be deep, go into the book, what is it called? The Negro Question, Part 4, The Missing Link. Go read that, right? That's the history they don't tell you about, right? They call it the Renaissance period, right? right? What was they covering up? It was covering up what? The faces of King James, right? The king, all these so-called kings of Europe during that time, right? They were all Israelites, right? So back to the class. It says, just were they defiled with their own works and went a whoring with their own inventions. Therefore was the wrath of the Lord kindled against his people, insomuch that he abhorred his own inheritance. So when we go into sin, that makes the face of the Lord turn away from us, right? It says, and he gave them into the hand of the heathen, and they that hated them ruled over them. So what do you think happened during the transatlantic slave trade, right? Our forefathers before them was going to hell off. And so what happened? He delivered us into the hands of our enemies, into the hands of them that hated us, right? Chiefly who? The so-called white man, right? Esau, Edom. Verse 42. Their enemies also oppressed them, and they were brought into subjection under their hand, right? And I looked this up earlier, but what happens to a slave when he was caught speaking in his mother tongue, right? There was physical punishment for that, right? Whether that had been the evil heathen forcing themselves upon a slave, right? Whether they would go and destroy the slave's living, right, his house, take away his wife, right? Whether they would go and kill somebody in his family, right? But there were consequences for speaking in your original tongue as a slave, right? The scriptures say there's nothing new under the sun, according to what? Ecclesiastes 1 and 9, right? Those same heathen have that same spirit today. Oh, don't come over here speaking that. What they always tell Issachar, the so-called Mexicans. Go back to your own country speaking that language. This is America. You got to speak English. What? Right? That's literally the same spirit. Got that? You can't speak that. Or else. Got the or else spirit on them. Or else what? Right? But reading on. It says, many times did he deliver them, but they provoked him with their counsel and were brought low for their iniquity. So all because of our sins, we were given into the hands of our enemies and had our languages, right, or our language and customs taken away from us. All right? Check these comments real quick. All right. So let's get back into this thing. All right. So, who was that? Back to the Willie Lynch letter real quick. Okay. So it says, the new nigger and the new mule, and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. You know, language is peculiar. Language is a peculiar institution. It leads to the heart of a people. Language leads to the mind of a people, right? Language leads to stirring up the minds of the people, right? Another classic precept, right? Let's go to it real quick. Genesis 32 and verse 28, right? This is something I myself like to do. I picked it up from brothers through the spirit, right? When we teach Israelites on the street, right, letting them know, hey, we not African American, hey, we not Mexican, hey, we not this or that, we not Native Americans, we're Israelites, right? This precept right here, when we read this in the Hebrew tongue, right, Genesis 32 and 28, it says, and he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, right? Thy name shall be called no more what? African American. Thy name shall be called no more just a nigga on the block, right? Thy name shall be called no more such, right? But Israel, what? But Yasher Allah. Israel in the Hebrew is Yasher Allah, right? That name alone in Hebrew holds power. It holds power right now in English. But picture it in the Hebrew, right? When you speaking and uplifting your brother that had been told he was just nothing but a nigga all his life, right? But Yashar Allah, for as a prince hast thou power with Yahweh and with men, and has prevailed. That literally revives the spirit of brothers and sisters. Awaken us out of what? The valley of dry bones, right? But it was prophesied through the spirit of the Lord that we was going to be turned into another language because of our disobedience, right? And let's get that precept real quick. Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 11. It says, "For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people." Because why? The Lord understood. The Lord already ordained for us to go into captivity, right? The curse said that we're going to be spread throughout many lands. Paraphrasing Deuteronomy 28 and 64. Or James chapter 1 and verse 1. To the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, right? All the way from America to China, right? From the west to the east, right? North to the south. It doesn't matter. It said with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people. That's why, hey, people try to scoff like, hey, well, why is this in English, right? They'll read the name Peter or something and start scoffing. Oh, my ancestors wasn't named Peter, bruh. Your name is Thomas. You can't see how just they was in captivity then, and we in captivity now with the same attributes and names, right? Given to us by our oppressors, right? Hey, in truth, when we were, well, we still are Israelites, but when we weren't in captivity, we had names like what? Macab, Bakar, Dawad, Eleazar, right? Yahweh Shai, right? Alahaya, names like that, right? Spoken in the true Hebrew language. But now, being brought in captivity, the Lord had to make it plain for his people to understand, right? We don't have the understanding, right? Well, hold on. We have understanding of the Paleo Hebrew, but everybody hasn't tapped into that, okay? So in order to reach his people on a major scale, the Lord had to speak to us in a different language, in English, right? Shalom, Brother Jose, Brother the Lamar, right? Shalom, everybody hopping in this thing, right? So that's a good precept to show people when they scoff about like, hey, the Bible wasn't in English, right? So why you reading the Bible? I mean, it's fake. No, the Lord just had to make it plain for his people, all right? So let's go back to the Willie Lynch letter. It says, the more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. And that's true, right? You could watch movies about that, right? And you got people you got the so-called white man from America, right? Going into these different countries, different lands, right? I'm gonna use Ghana or something for an example. They go over there, right? They can speak the language, right? They already a foreigner, so that nation is looking at them like, oh, they already on they stuff. They're already a A-list celebrity in their eyes, right? You should see them videos where it's this white guy. He speak I want to say the language of the Nigerians, right? He could speak that pretty well, and they be so fascinated, right? They love that this Edomite can speak their language fluently, right? And they start to suck up and kiss up to him, right? So it says, therefore, if the foreigner is, excuse me, Salaki. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of the country, to the extent that he knows the body of the language, to that extent is the country vulnerable to attack or invasion of a foreign culture. And what do you think happened in 70 AD, right, when we were under the hand of Roman persecution? You think these Edomites didn't know how to speak in the Hebrew tongue, right? Capt Benaniyah, he was telling us about the lineage of Simon, if I'm not mistaken. It was a lineage of Simon in First and Second Maccabees, right? How his children they ended off marrying into Idumea, right? Right? And that's what brought about the first Edomites who were just inclusive into the Hebraic religion, right? These nations, they slick, right? They are very slick. And that's why the scripture saying in Zechariah 1 and 15 that these people help to further our afflictions. They strategically set up like, hey, you know what? I know I'm an Edomite, but I want to give my daughter to your Israelite son, right? All for the purpose of, okay, 15, 20, 30 years from now, we're going to take over and we're going to rule these people, all right? But reading on, it says, for example, if you take a slave, if you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets, and he is then no more a slave, for you can't fool him any longer. We can read now, Massa. For example, if you told a slave that he must perform in getting out our crops, he knows the language well. He would know that our crops didn't mean our crops. Reading comprehension, right? And a lot of our people fail at that today, right? I blame parents, but I mostly blame this system because it was set up for us to be what? Exactly what they wanted us to be, just slaves. They didn't want us to read or write. They didn't want us to learn as their children learned, right? They wanted us to be a dumb people, right? Sodist children, according to Jeremiah 4 and 22, right? It says, it's like, and the slavery system will break down, for he will relate on the basis of what our crops really meant. And when you start to understand, like, hey, this Edomite, the slave master just told me, hey, go pick our crops. These not really our crops. Now I understand, hey, you're using me for your benefit, right? You're using me for gain. And as the scripture say, Ecclesiastes 7 and 7, surely oppression maketh a wise man mad. Then that's when you get your slave revolts. Then that's when you get the protestings, right? The Black Lives Matter movements, right? When we come to that understanding, like, hey, this is not our rest, right? Micah 2 and 10, this is not our rest. Then that's when change starts to happen, right? Reading on. So it says, so you have to be careful in setting up the new language for the slaves. For the slaves will soon be in your house, talking to you man to man. And that is death to our economic system. In addition, the definitions of words or terms are only a minute a part of the a minute part of the process. Values are created and transported by communication through the body of the language. A total society has many interconnected value systems. All the values in the society have bridges of language to connect them for orderly working in the society, right? And it reads this. But for these language bridges, these many value systems would sharply clash and cause internal strife or civil war, right? What is this going into? Code switching, right? That's something that they thought we would never learn, right? These people truly thought that we were just dumb dogs. They compared us to a horse, to donkeys, right? To beasts. When we was the one teaching them how to take baths. We was the one teaching them education, right? Hey, we had them crying and begging for their or for our inheritance, right? But let's get this precept real quick. Jeremiah 51 and 20, the classic. What's like verse 19? Because we are the form of all things, right? There's nothing that you can put past an Israelite. We done already done it, right? Jeremiah 51 and 19. The portion of Jacob is not like them, right? We not like these other nations. That's why the Lord called us a holy people, according to what? Deuteronomy 7:6. For he is the former of all things, right? During the times of slavery, who do you think established light bulbs? Who do you think built the cotton gin? Who do you think understood how to get electricity flowing through buildings, right? I'm talking about the first carpenters, the first blacksmiths, right? The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name. I'm talking about what? When you read the book of Leviticus, you'll understand that we are a cleanly people. We take baths, right? We purify ourselves with different fragrances. No other nation was moving like that. And if they were, it was a learned behavior that they learned from us. All right? So let's go back to it. The Willie Lynch letter, page 25. It says what? Salakia. The degree of the conflict being determined by the magnitude of the issues or relative opposing strength in whatever form. For example, if you put a slave in a hog pen and train him to live there and incorporate in him to value it as a way of life completely, the biggest problem you will have out of him is that he will worry you about provisions to keep the hog pen clean, or the same hog pen and make a slip and incorporate something in his language whereby he comes to value a house more than he does his dog pen. You got a problem. He will soon be in your house, right? Ultimately what? Going into playing on the ignorance of our people, right? And that's exactly what they do, right? Let's get this precept. I'm going to get 2 more precepts. Then we're going to close out through the Spirit. Let's go to Psalm chapter 94, right? In verse, where we at? 20. It says what? Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, right? Which frameth mischief by a law. Which frameth mischief by a law. Hey, in Texas, we have an open carry state policy, right? But if, let's just say, hypothetically, you do something illegal while it's open carry, right? Not only can they charge you for whatever it was that you did, but if they see that you had a gun in your possession, they'll charge you for that as well, right? And you know, that's one thing about our people. We love to carry guns, right? This is Texas, right? It's the Second Amendment state, just being honest. But that's something that they're not going to tell you. You have to go and research that. It said what? Which framing mischief by a law. They literally trying to set our people up for failure, all right? So that's the last precept I'm going to get concerning that. But let's get this precept in Zephaniah real quick. Because what? The topic of this class is what? Them trying to control our language. Let's go to the book of Zephaniah, right? Chapter 3, in verse 9. We're going to close out. I'm starting at 8. Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 8. It says, therefore, wait ye upon me, saith the Lord. Now I know, we seeking for the kingdom. We seeking for what? Destruction to our enemies. We're seeking for everything good and righteous right now in this life. But the Lord said, therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. Meaning what? Until the Lord redeems us from these heathens. For my determination is to gather the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation. And that's what the Lord is doing in these last days. He's raising up the kings of the east. He's raising up China, Russia, Japan, right? He's raising up America, right? He's raising up Ukraine. He's raising up what? Elam, right? Even all my fierce anger For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. With what? Thermonuclear warfare. For then, right? For then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord, to serve him with one consent. Then, after the destruction of these nations, and the Lord Yahweh shall return, then Israel's going to get that blessing of a pure language in the Hebrew. You're not going to hear me speaking as I'm speaking now. You're going to hear me say, Shalom, Shalom, Ak, Khan, right? Tawab Bawakar, good morning. You're going to hear us speaking in this pure language, right? And with that, we're going to close out through the spirit, right? Lord willing, brothers and sisters was edified, right? On this Willie Lynch letter series. You know, just trying something new. I'm gonna try to going forward. I'm gonna try to keep it up with the books, right? I'm gonna go back into classes, but I think I'm gonna keep going forward with different books and histories or whatnot through the spirit. So Lord willing, you know, y'all learned something, got something out of this that y'all could probably take and teach to somebody else. You know, reach one, teach one. You know, y'all just keep holding it down through the spirit, man. This Passover season, meaning what? It's sifting season, man. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get another precept. Then I'm gonna close out. It's sifting season, man. So you gotta be watchful and strengthen the things which remain, which are ready to perish. Because ultimately, what? If you're not on your P's and Q's, right, the Lord gonna knock you off, right? So let's get this precept. John chapter 11 and verse 55. And the Jews' Passover was nigh at hand, and many went out of the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves, right? So we understand that what? Passover is down the street. It's time to start to what? Purify ourselves, right? Start to wash us and make us clean, as the scriptures say, right? So with that, I'm going to give all glory, honor, and praise to the Most High God and His Son, Yahweh Shai, right? Shalom.